What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big and Bold. Today we're talking about Paul Chryst, who has officially been released from his head coaching position at the University of Wisconsin. This is something that has shocked some people because of the success that he has had at Wisconsin. Others understand it completely because they're just not moving in the right direction there. But we're going to cover why he got fired and really who's most likely to replace him, and I think there's a really obvious answer out there. You look at his first 3 years at Wisconsin, and I remember watching them play out and thinking, wow, this guy has Wisconsin as a powerhouse in the Big Ten. In 41 games, he went 34-7 with 2 New Year's Six Bowl victories, 2 top 10 finishes, and 2 Big Ten West division titles, all in his first 3 seasons from 2015 to 2017. Wisconsin was fantastic under Paul Chryst once he arrived at that program. But you compare that to the last 5 years. In fairness, he only coached 7 games in 2020 because of COVID, and there are only 5 games in to this season. But in a total of 52 games over the last 5 years, he has 33 wins to 19 losses. No New Year's Six Bowl victories. They were almost top 10 in 2019, but outside of that, they haven't finished inside of the top 25. And they have a lone Big Ten West title in that 5-year span in 2019. So for a guy with an impeccable bowl record of 6-1, 3 Big Ten West division titles, it's hard to move on from a guy like that at Wisconsin. But the last 3 years in particular are really concerning when you take into account that he's 15-10 over the course of the last 3 seasons, with losses to Washington State this season at home. Washington State never goes on the road and beats a ranked Big Ten team. It just doesn't happen. Illinois, who they just got embarrassed by, and that effectively cost Paul Chryst his job, losing to former Wisconsin head coach Brett Bielema. That kind of was the last nail in the coffin for them. And then last season, with a Big Ten West title on the line in the last game of the season, they dropped a game to Minnesota. So this is probably going to be the first 3-year stretch since 2001 to 2003 where Wisconsin won't finish in the top 25. And at best, if they let him ride out the rest of the season, you assume that they finish as maybe an 8-win team. We know the fact they have to play Purdue, Iowa, Minnesota still, so those aren't easy games. You could attribute his lack of success the last few seasons to Graham Mertz at quarterback. Start Graham Mertz at quarterback early and try to ride the waves of that has not worked for Wisconsin. But you have to place blame on Paul Chryst for that too. The fact that Graham Mertz was a former top 100 player coming out of high school who was supposed to take Wisconsin to the next level because they've had the run game, they've had the defense, but they haven't had the passing game. Well, that former top 100 recruit out of high school has a touchdown to interception ratio of 27-21 the last few years. So it really hasn't worked at all with Graham Mertz. The fact that their defense, especially this season, is not performing like we thought it would. They have a special running back in Braylon Allen, but that formula the last 3 or 4, 5 years just isn't working like it was when he got there. And that's Wisconsin football. Like that running the ball, playing defense, that is Wisconsin football. That's what they want to do. But as of late, a 15-10 record over the last 3 years is not good enough for a team that's been more years than not far better than that over the course of the last 25. And it's kind of funny, when I started drafting up this video once they lost to Illinois, I was coming up with, will they fire Paul Chryst? And if they did, who would replace him? And then the news broke that Wisconsin has officially released Paul Chryst. And it's unfortunate because of what he accomplished at Wisconsin. Not 15 years ago, you're talking 5 years ago. Over the last 25 years, Wisconsin has been pretty much a premier program in the Big Ten, considering they don't recruit at an elite level, but they still win and win consistently. But in today's era of college football, where Wisconsin hasn't adapted to NIL and to the transfer portal, you also pair that with the fact that the Big Ten is moving over to this divisionless conference and they're expanding, bringing in USC and UCLA and possibly other teams. I think that Wisconsin looked at this as an opportunity to bring in a head coach to effectively go into the modern era of college football, is how I see this. The Graham Mertz thing hasn't worked. that model of running the football and defense can work. It just hasn't worked for them recently. And I think they believe they needed a change. And they're giving Jim Leonhard, defensive coordinator for Wisconsin, he is now the interim head coach. They're giving him his shot. He's been the defensive coordinator for Wisconsin since 2017. Played at Wisconsin. He was a great player there. And he's done an incredible job as a defensive coordinator. In 2021, the Wisconsin defense, you look at opponent yards per game going against Wisconsin. Wisconsin was the number one team in the country, giving up the lowest amount of yards per game. In 2019, they were fourth. In 2018, 24th, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. And in 2017, they were second. So he's done an incredible job with that defense, having players drafted like Zach Bond and TJ Watt and Leo Chenal. So they've had an incredible defense at Wisconsin with Jim Leonhard, and he's now given an opportunity. We'll see if he can rebound and make this a 6, 7, 8 win team this season, and if that's enough for him to get the head coaching job. But I think it depends on the interest from a couple of other guys. Like Matt Campbell for Iowa State is thrown at every head coaching position that is or could be open across college football. People consistently talk about Matt Campbell leaving Iowa State. We'll see if he does it. Really, I think a more likely scenario is Lance Leopold, the head coach for Kansas, takes over. He was at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater for a very long time, from 2007 to 2014. He's a born and raised guy from the state of Wisconsin. And despite the fact that he has a win-loss of 7-10 at Kansas, he's getting a lot of attention for head coaching jobs because this is the best year that Kansas has had since like 2009. A 5-0 start for Kansas is a very difficult thing to do. He's got them in the top 25 right now. So Lance Leopold and Matt Campbell are popular names for the job. Jim Leonhard is being given the opportunity to earn the head coaching job, being named the interim. You know, if they go 7-5, that's a really good year from when they started. Will it be enough? I think it more so depends on can they bring in a guy like Lance Leopold or Matt Campbell. I think that if they can, they probably will. But Jim Leonhard would be a phenomenal head coaching hire because, as I said, played at Wisconsin. He's been there a long time. His defenses have been incredible at Wisconsin. I think that he's the guy for the job, but we'll see what they decide to do because they want to be a contender in the Big Ten. They're not content with 4 or 5 year stretches without success in the occasional big season. They want to be a consistent contender. So with that, let me know in the comments if you believe they should have given Paul Chryst more time. Should he finish out the season? Should they have allowed him to give him another year? And who's the right guy for the job? Do you go with Jim Leonhard, who's done an incredible job at Wisconsin, but maybe he's someone too close to the program to roll with? Maybe they want to go in a different direction, someone outside of the program. Would you rather have Matt Campbell or Lance Leopold take over at head coach? Let me know in the comments. This is a big deal. The West in the Big Ten, which will no longer be the West because it looks like the Big Ten is gutting divisions. You've got Nebraska open. You've got Wisconsin open. Big Ten is definitely in flux right now, on the verge of adding some more teams as well. So this is a really interesting time in college football. But thank you for listening, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And keep an eye out for more upcoming college football content as we are, unfortunately, almost halfway through the season.